Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Today's Thursday, August 18th, 2022, and you're already seeing my usual co-host on Thursdays, Dwayne Generalissimo Patterson of the Hugh Hewitt Show, master of the Hugniverse, HUGHNIVERSE.com. The troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt fans and listeners, where he and I just did this last night, so if you remember in both places. This is not going to be a repeat, though, Dwayne. We've got new stuff to talk about this morning already.
Absolutely right. Great to be back. There's all sorts of fun stuff that we could be talking about.
Well, I mean, the first thing is something you just pointed out to me, so I haven't even had much of a chance to look at this, but apparently CNN is reporting this morning, based on rules that were posted on Monday, that Ron DeSantis is going to go after the ESG movement and go after corporate wokery in Florida, at least in terms of their pension funds. In pension fund investments, yeah.
He's basically saying, hey, Wall Street, hey, Larry Fink over at BlackRock, we're not going to do this here. We're putting on the blinders here when we're doing pension investments. We're doing rate of return, period. We're not doing wokery here. Ron DeSantis, you look at the moves he's making, and you look at the stances that he is staking out. He is staking out absolute conservative grounds, and he's just not given an inch.
No, he's not. And I think this is yet another reminder of what I mean when I say that Ron DeSantis really has to be governor when he runs for president. There's no way he does this from 2027. He has to do it in 2023. And the reason why is because he's still impacting the news as governor, which he won't be once he's out of there.
Absolutely right. He is that is why it is go time this time around, whether Trump's in or not. I think DeSantis has to go, because he's never going to have another opportunity like he has right now.
No, and I mean,
and
beyond that.
What I mean right now, I mean after he wins re-election and we're in this presidential cycle of 24, he's got to go now.
Yeah. Now, this is populist in a number of directions. One is it targets wokery, right? The other is, though, that it's also sort of a shot across the bow of corporatists, right? And I don't mean just in terms of woke. I mean in terms of corporate leaders who think that they can direct American policy from the boardroom. Now, I would say that Republicans have had a long flirtation with corporatism. Democrats kind of won that battle, I think, over the last, especially in the Obama administration, when they benefited so much from it. And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing populism rising in the Republican Party, and why you have the MAGA split that took place, 6 years ago. But also, why you see governors like Ron DeSantis who see a political benefit from going after Wall Street. I mean, you don't do this unless you think voters are going to reward you for it.
And it's not just Wall Street. I mean, I think look at the moves that DeSantis has made. He is siding with parents when it comes to wokery. He is taking the side of female athletes when it comes to whether we should have boys swimming in the pools and in the locker rooms and all that stuff. He's very much he's very much trying to keep the woke stuff out of virtually every aspect of Florida life, whether it's education, whether it's finance now, whether it's pension funds. I mean, he is staking out the ground for a 24 presidential run eventually. That I think there was a clip. I think there was a clip I had from a couple of days ago where he closed out a speech saying, "Look, Florida is where woke goes to die." He's going to have an economic case to make. He's going to have a security aspect to make, as far as what he's talked about with the southern border and sending Florida law enforcement to help out Greg Abbott down at the southern border and assist um, on a state-to-state basis. But when you look at what DeSantis is doing on the social issue stuff too, he has taken out the anti-woke ground and is gambling that a majority of the country is going to be with him on that. And I think that's a safe bet because I think the blowback to woke is just beginning to fully blossom now.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think that this is obviously it's very much a responsive message to the woke issue, but I just think it's a really interesting cultural moment, Dwayne, when it used to be that we would even joke around about the left. It's the corporations, man. It's the corporations. Um, and the right actually has, I think, even more issues on that score now than the left does, and I think it's because corporations have just gotten so large and their impacts are so profound in American lives that Americans are kind of sick and tired of it. And this gets to what Donald Trump tapped into in 2016 and in 2020. And I think it's also interesting that we're getting this from Ron DeSantis in 2022.
Absolutely. And you know, what's Donald Trump? If Donald Trump does run against, he does get in here, and he, how's he going to outstake that ground from DeSantis?
Um, I, you know, he can point to the fact that he appointed three Supreme Court justices. I mean, there are things from his term that he can point to. But you're right. If it's a "what have you done for me lately" thing, this
I mean,
is
DeSantis he is establishing a long track record of not just talking the talking points that people want to hear, but
yeah.
actually doing stuff.
Well, and again, I mean, I think you can point to Trump's tenure and say he did stuff there too, but clearly DeSantis is fighting this on multiple fronts. I mean, you and I were laughing last night about a story about the follow up on a story about him suspending uh, the state attorney. I was trying to think of the right term. The state attorney for the 13th Judicial District for publicly signing a pledge not to enforce laws that the state legislature had passed and DeSantis had signed regarding abortion restrictions and sex change operations for minors. And so DeSantis suspended him. And yesterday,
Which he has every state constitutional right within the Florida state
right,
constitution to do.
right, right, and precedent, which we'll get to in a second, Andrew Warren decided to sue Ron DeSantis to get his job back, claiming it was a blatant abuse of power and authoritarianism and interference with his First Amendment rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which all would sound really good, except for Ayala v. Scott, which was decided 5 years ago on
Yeah.
almost precisely the same grounds. A state attorney making a public declaration not to enforce a statute, or not even, in this case, it wasn't even a statute, not to ask for the death penalty in death penalty cases as a matter of policy. Rick Scott transferred all potential death penalty cases to a different district. Aramis Ayala sued, and the state Supreme Court 5-2 said, no, he's got the authority to do it. And furthermore, you don't really have the authority to decide that you're broadly not going to, follow the law. And even the dissent in Ayala v. Smith, 2017, you can look it up. I have it at Hot Air, said that, look, they really should give her a pass because there are rational reasons not to pursue death penalty cases, not necessarily ideological, which I actually agree with. I think that I think that sometimes it can be more trouble than it's worth. Except for the voters of the state of Florida want it, and B, that's not really her decision to make in terms of policy. But also, the dissenters said, well, look, it's not like she's saying that she wouldn't enforce a statute. So
Right.
Andrew Warren's got some problems there. I mean, this lawsuit is practically a in-kind contribution to DeSantis 2024. Because, I mean, DeSantis is just going to roll all over this guy.
Well, of course he is. And the other thing too is it shows how inept this guy is I mean, his job is to file suits, right? I mean, that's his job is to prosecute and file suits against people, right?
Yep.
That's what he's allegedly supposed to do. You would think he would have some expertise in knowing what the hell he's doing.
You'd
And
think.
apparently he doesn't have the first foggiest idea what he's doing.
No, he doesn't. And I'd almost say that this lawsuit against DeSantis is a pretty good argument for removing him under the incompetence standard as well.
I mean, I've got that clip. You and I were talking about that clip from the press conference yesterday, where a reporter pushed back at Andrew, and his answer was humana, 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 humana.
Ah, that's okay. That's all right. We'll skip it today because we got other stuff to talk about. But just talking about DeSantis, this thing with the ESG and woke corporatism, I think is
name me another governor in the country that's gotten out in front on that for ahead of DeSantis.
On that particular point, nobody,
right?
Nobody's gotten out ahead of
now.
No.
Do you think Greg Abbott's going to eventually get in on that? Do you think Doug Ducey's going to eventually get in on that?
I think Abbott and Ducey are working on the border crisis, which is something DeSantis can't really do because it's not really a border state. I mean, he talks about immigration.
But what he did do was he set up a bunch of law enforcement, sheriff's deputies and whatever from all over the state, state to state aid.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying he hasn't done anything about it or that he hasn't weighed in on it. But I mean, Abbott's the guy who's sending, the excess migrants out to New York City and Washington, D.C. too. Ducey's doing the same thing now. So, I mean, each of these guys have different claims to fame, if you will. And Youngkin's doing things with school boards. He forced out all those school board members when he got into office. So each of these guys have claims to be doing that. And this is the key. They actually have track records on this that are operating within a couple of years of this primary choice that voters have to make.
Right.
And the issue, I think, for Donald Trump in the face of this is that he hasn't done much on this in a while. And you've got all this other baggage. And I think what Ron DeSantis is muscularly making a case for is that you don't need Trump to get this stuff done. Thank Trump for the work that he did do. Thank Trump for the Supreme Court we've got, but we've got other people who can take the baton and carry it further. Especially since, again, Trump's only limited to one term in office now. Even if he manages to win, which I think is a long shot.
And this is something you and I talked about last night in the after show, which is the case against Trump is not even the drama and just the emotional roller coaster you've got to embark upon when you back a Trump presidency. The reason that you would look the other way for Trump is because if you look at what the FBI did, and the FBI's got to be gutted at the top. The Pentagon is full of woke generals and all sorts of career staffers that are hostile to conservatives and a conservative agenda, and they need to be cleared out. The State Department's got to be cleaned out. The CDC and the HHS has to be cleaned out. The Schedule F employees?
Schedule F. The Schedule F thing, I think, was a very good idea for a president who's oriented to detail and to granular policy implementation. You need to hire people who can hire people who can hire people, and you have to keep a close eye on that process. And
but the next Republican president they've got to clear cut the federal government. They have got to go through agencies and start blowing people out. And then you've got to replace them. And the problem with Donald Trump is, can he fire people? Yeah, he can. He has definitely built a reputation for firing people he doesn't like. I understand that.
Can he fire people? Yeah, but I mean, can he hire people? And that was part of the problem in the first couple of years.
That's part of his problem is, can he get the right people to work for him initially? Now, eventually, he got Mike Pompeo in the right spot. Eventually, he got Robert O'Brien in the right spot. He did do some good things with hires, but I mean, honest to goodness, he couldn't get anybody at defense to save his life.
Well,
that was worth anything.
Well, yeah, and look, I mean, I thought James Mattis was actually a pretty good guy at defense until they got crosswise on Syria. But
it became a hostile environment. I mean, how many national security advisors did he go through?
well, a couple of them.
Way too many,
Way
right?
too many. Well, I wasn't even worried about that because there's been churn in administrations before that. What I was concerned about was the
Name the
lack of
last.
attention. Wait, the lack of attention to sub cabinet posts, because that's where you drain the swamp. You
Right.
have to put the right people in charge to start draining the swamp, and that administration was very poor at that. I mean, you can just look at if you want to talk about the State Department, you can look at all the undersecretary positions and all the ambassadorial positions that were left open for, months on end. And some of that was the Senate backing things up a bit, but a lot of it was just that they weren't nominating people for those positions. And that's a problem. You need somebody who's got more focus. And the reason why this is a problem is it's not even really an issue of, laziness, because I've heard people say, well, he's lazy. Well, of course he's not lazy. The guy built a real estate empire. You don't get there for being lazy. What he is, though, is he's used to a family-owned organization where everything's from the top down, and you don't need to have a bunch of people if you're the type of guy who wants to make all the decisions yourself. That's Donald Trump. What you need to do that type of work is somebody from the outside, not inside the Beltway, who's used to running a large, multipolar, conglomerated organization, who can navigate those things and who understands how to drill down in them. And that's the reason why I think a governor is a good choice, especially in this next cycle.
A governor's a good choice, and you've got to ask yourself that the prospect of what's ahead. To think that somebody can blow everybody out that needs to be blown out and hire somebody and get them confirmed in 1 4-year term, because that's all you're going to get.
Yep. Yeah.
That's not a long shot for success to think that that's going to happen. Whereas if somebody comes in, whether it's a Doug Ducey or a Glenn Youngkin or
DeSantis or anybody, yeah.
Name your governor. I'm not homing for DeSantis here. I'm just saying, if you put a governor in that has not already been in office at this point, you've got the prospect at least of possibly a 2-term proposition. And if over the course of 8 years that becomes something that this administration does, which is clean out the swamp that needs to be cleaned out, you can make the case. Look what I've done in this state. I've already done that. The swamp cleaning here. Now here's what I'm going to do here. And if you show that you do that in the first year or two, now you've got the case to make. Just let me keep rolling here, right?
That's exactly it. This is about 2024. It really is, and everybody knows this.
And that's the case against Trump. You may agree with the policy decisions, but can he really do anything consequential in a 4-year period when the day he's inaugurated again, he's a lame duck?
He's basically a lame duck. All right, let's talk about another topic here. This one also just came up this morning. Libs of TikTok, which is a very provocative social media account, has been the target of doxing attacks by the Washington Post, Taylor Lawrence, and has been obviously the subject of much debate. And
a thorn in the side of the progressive left.
Very much a thorn in the side of the progressive left. This morning, or late last night, I should say, she announced on Twitter that she had been permanently banned from Facebook, apparently over claims of misinformation about sex change operations by Boston Children's Hospital, where they have a pediatric and adolescent gender affirming service
they have conducted 65 double mastectomies on minors from the period of 2017 to 2020.
Now they're
Boston
claiming
children.
BCH is claiming that they don't do genital surgeries on anybody under 18, which I find to be a very specific response, right? Genitalia surgeries, I guess. It's I can't remember exactly what the phrase is. I'll look it up in just a minute.
But that's
genital surgeries. They don't do genital surgeries. Now, I don't know if you can. I don't know if that is excluding mastectomies, and I haven't seen the data. I mean, honestly, I saw this story floating around about BCH as sort of part of this whole transgender maelstrom that's going on right now. But I mean, you take a look at this, and if BCH is saying we don't do any genital surgeries on people under 18, that is a I mean, that leaves a lot of things still open, like puberty blockers, perhaps mastectomies, perhaps not mastectomies. I don't know if
I
they
think
consider those genitals. They probably don't because they're not.
I think that response from Boston General
Boston Children's.
I'm sorry, Boston Children's. I think that response is a very carefully worded parsing. I think you're getting into, well, we don't do genital surgery. Okay, that's not what the claim was. The claim was they have done 65
No,
double
there was a claim about hysterectomies being done on underage girls. That was
Okay,
part of what Libs of TikTok. That's the specific claim that fact checkers went after. And BCH denied it, say we don't do genital surgeries on anybody under 18. Now, the mastectomies may be a different issue, and that's the reason why I noted that genital surgeries is a very oddly specific term when you're talking about
that's
pediatric
talking
and
that's
adolescent.
that's talking about a certain region. That doesn't necessarily include multiple regions.
Yeah,
That's
it may
that's
not include
that's a different thing.
breasts. I mean, and I
Yeah.
mean, technically speaking, breasts aren't genitals. You know, they're
No.
secondary sex characteristics, not primary sex characteristics. But I mean,
No, if you're kicked in the if you're kicked in the genitals, that doesn't mean that Chuck Norris did a roundhouse to your left boob. That's a different region.
I suddenly am having flashbacks to middle school. No,
Why?
welcome to
Because of
junior
Chuck
high.
Norris?
What's that?
Why? Because of Chuck Norris?
No, because of kicks to genitals. That was how I was
Oh,
greeted. That was how I was greeted in junior high school.
well, okay.
You
Well,
know,
sorry.
I'm just saying that, you know, every time I see this in a movie, it's like, let's not do this. Flashbacks. All right. Now, if it was false, if she's pushing out false information on Libs of TikTok, I understand why fact checkers would fact check it, right? I understand why people would debate it. I would even understand if Boston Children's Hospital decided to take some sort of legal action for, you know, false, defamation, false, there are legal remedies, civil legal remedies when people push out false information, especially if it's knowingly false. We all know this because we all operate in the First Amendment sphere, right? What I have a concern about, my broader concern on this, is not necessarily whether BCH is parsing, why, for instance, BCH even has a pediatric an adolescent gender multi-specialty service. I mean, pediatric? Adolescent's bad
Okay.
enough, but pediatric?
Okay. So just while we were talking, I did a search on the Googles. Okay.
Oh, don't do that. You're talking about facts.
So I did a search on the Googles, and I did a search for Boston Children's genital reassignment. And then I did the Google searches, and the Googles came back, and the second link on there took me to a link to Boston Children's Hospital. It is www.childrenshospital.org. It's got the phone number of 617 phone number, which is the area code for Boston.
Right.
And it says phalloplasty. What is phalloplasty? Phalloplasty is the surgical creation of a penis. In this procedure, surgeons harvest one or more flaps of skin from inner tissue, blah, 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 blah. Who is eligible for it? Surgery is never the first step, but if it is something that happens after you've already explored social and medical transition options, people who choose to undergo usually do so after taking other steps, such as whatever, to qualify for a phalloplasty at Boston Children's Hospital. You must meet certain criteria.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same page right now. Now, you must meet certain criteria.
And be 18.
And you must be at least 18 years old. So, yeah. They do surgery on adults at Boston Children's Hospital. I mean, that's just the name of the hospital. They do surgery on adults there. So let's just say, let's just take it as let's stipulate that this is somehow misinformation that Libs of TikTok was had put out on this Facebook post. It got picked up by a lot of people, right? I mean, I was part of the complaint that the Daily Beast had. Well, it got picked up by all the conservative websites, Daily Caller and Gateway Pundit and all the rest of this stuff. Okay, fine. First off, I'd like to know just how much misinformation this is. And secondly, what Facebook did to, in sort of an escalating manner, attempt to mitigate this, right? I mean, because there are other options than just banning somebody. And my concern about this, Dwayne, is not that I want misinformation out there. Of course I don't. I want to be able to identify misinformation just like anybody else, but I can. I mean, I can look this stuff up. I can call Boston Children's and say, hey, I'm Ed Morsey. I'm managing editor of hotair.com. This allegation was made. What's your response? I get the response, and then I figure out what it is that should be believed. My issue on this is that you've got this sort of combination of social media platforms and mainstream media fact-checking orgs. PolitiFact is one of the big ones that's involved in Facebook fact-checking. And it's cited as one of the Daily Beast as one of the ones that fact-checked this thing from Libs of TikTok.
Right.
That, to me, sets up this sort of, getting back to the corporations, man. It's all the corporations. I feel like I need a hemp t-shirt for this podcast today. But that sets up this sort of closed system where mainstream media outlets can combine up with social media platforms to determine who can and who can't have access to public debate, because social media is where a lot of this public debate takes place. And I'd rather have people spewing misinformation than people being silenced who might be actually accurate. And I mean, all you need to do is see what happened with I don't even make this point in the post, but all you need to do is remember what happened in the pandemic and how they silenced a bunch of people who turned out to be right about things like masking, about shutting down schools, to know that that's a bad outcome. And that type of outcome is going to produce a type of governance that is not going to be what we're used to in the United States of America.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I was just scamming around too, and it looks like that policy of they don't do surgeries under 18. That apparently was a change in policy as of fall of 2020. Is apparently when they quit doing underage genital surgeries, and they decided, okay, we're only going to do it to 18 and older. But apparently they did at one point. They did a change in policy in 2020. So now, as far as the misinformation thing, does that mean they never did it, or does that,
or that they don't do it anymore?
Correct. Yeah. So now is that really that grievous of an offense?
Well, I mean, again, why can't we have that debate? Why can't she put that out there and the rest of us get the rest of the information?
Because the Facebooks are apparently not in the business of playing fair. They never have. I mean, Twitter doesn't play fair.
No, in fact, Twitter's looking at the Libs of TikTok account too. So she might be completely, and she's already off of Instagram, so she might be completely booted off of social media by this time. By the time this podcast actually goes up, she might be completely off of social media and effectively silenced by what? By social media companies and the mainstream media. And here's where I take a longer view. Right? Why did we get into this business in the first place? Why did I get into blogging? Why did we get into talk radio? But it was to provide a counter to the media narratives that were being created by editors at large mainstream media news outlets that were factually deficient.
That were not necessarily true.
Right. Yes. I mean, what was the seminal moment in blogging? It was Dan Rather's, uh, you know, uh, fake news attack on George W.
The
Bush's
the you
record.
know the raised th, right? You know,
Yeah,
that was supposedly done on an IBM Selectric back in 1974 or whatever it was.
right. Which
That couldn't have been done. That was actually a Word doc.
right. Which they said later. Oh well, they retyped it from the original. That's the reason why. It's like, yeah, well, that wasn't what you reported at first, pal. And
Correct.
and 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 the
And
people
you're
who were
done.
there, and you're done. Yeah, this was fake but accurate. Remember, we were talking about fake but accurate in
Yep.
2004. Dan Rather's still out there trying to sell fake but accurate, right?
Well, to this day,
To
Dan
this
Rather
day.
still he still thinks he was right.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane. And that's the reason why we got into the blogosphere, was because the blogosphere, the internet and the blogosphere, which was, completely grassroots types of things back in the day, it was completely grassroots. Um, Later got professionalized because it was, because there was a market for this. And so a market developed around it, got more professional. As a result of which I've had a very nice career doing what I do. And I'm very happy about that. And thank God I work for a company that doesn't rely on Facebook or Twitter or outside Google or outside social media platforms in order to be published. But we did that so we could work around the what's the good word for it, the lock that mainstream media had on getting information out to people. And this to me feels an awful lot like social media corporations are trying to reinstall the lock that the internet broke on mainstream media's monopoly on information dissemination. It's an antithetical to
Yeah,
what
you
the
see,
what the internet was supposed to be. It's entirely antithetical to it.
and you know what? I don't think it's going to work because if they try to put that genie back in the bottle, you know what's going to happen to Libs of TikTok? She'll just actually start a blog again, and that blog will be highly successful. Selena Zito, our mutual friend, was on Twitter for years, and she did the social medias until the bulwark crowd really started coming out for her and just
Yep.
just was so vicious to her that she finally said, "Screw this! I don't need it." She has her own website. She posts her stuff at her own site. She still writes her columns, and everybody reads Selena Zito. It hasn't slowed her down a bit to be banned from social media or to have taken herself off social media. If you've got something to say, um, the avenues to be read are wide open. It
Yep.
doesn't mean you have to be on social media. Our mutual friend James Lilacs, yes, he tweets, yes, he does whatever else, but who doesn't go to lilacs.com, at least once, twice a week or more and reads the bleed, right? I
Right.
mean, if you've got something to say and you're good at it, you're gonna have a home, and there is no barrier to entry to be read.
Yep. Yep. And so that potential is still out there, but let's not forget that Google bought up Blogger. Facebook absorbed a lot of the impetus for blogging by providing at least a measure of advertising sharing.
Right. Right.
Um, you know, I'm telling you, I think that we're seeing this sort of speech constriction that's going to return us back to the days where instead of ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN, you're going to have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Google.
But the conservatives and the Republicans are the fascists. At least that's what I was told.
Yeah, that's what I've been told too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dwayne. Well, we're just about at the end of this here. I know that there's probably tons of other things. I've got a post that's coming up this morning. It'll be up by the time this goes up, with the Fed minutes, which got released last night or this morning from their July meeting, which basically says inflation's going to last long and hard, pal.
And
Buckle
and
up.
and there's going to be another three-quarter point.
Almost
Uh,
certainly another three-quarter
almost
point.
certainly another coming in what, another 2-3 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think 3 weeks. I think
Yeah.
we're looking at 3 weeks now. So yeah, yeah, buckle up. This and I mean, they don't even mention the Inflation Reduction Act. CNBC and the Financial Times don't even mention the Inflation Reduction Act. Why? Because it doesn't reduce inflation, so it's really irrelevant to this discussion. That's how bad the Inflation Reduction Act is. Buckle
Well,
up.
all we
It's
can
going to be a
all
bumpy
we can
ride.
hope for, all we can hope for, and all we can work for is to make sure that the House and hopefully the Senate gets in GOP hands so that appropriations bills in the next 2 years gut the the snot out of this
Yep.
thing so that there is no funding for the IRS agents. There is no funding for all the green subsidies. There is no, all that money they're going to spend just gets completely gutted when it actually comes down to appropriations bills. And just dare Joe Biden to veto and shut the government down. Fine by me. I have no. If the government's going to be that out of control and big, if the IRS is going to have 87,000 new agents, I'm all for shutting the government down. Fine by me.
Well, there you go. What's coming up on tomorrow's Hugh Hewitt show, by the way, which is at 6 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow?
We will have Sonny Bunch on doing movies. Larry Arnold will be on as well, like normal, and then we will have a conversation with another of the great up and coming potential incoming freshman class of the House of Representatives. Hugh just came back from Wyoming, where Kevin McCarthy was holding his retreat for all of the targeted seats that they think they have got a real good shot of winning. There was like 60 people there, 70 people there from all over the country that are everything from doctors to Navy SEALs to all sorts of people that are running in all sorts of districts. One of them is running in North Carolina's 14th district, a guy named Pat Harrington. And Pat's going to come on as well. But over the next few weeks, Hugh is going to showcase and highlight all the marquee races that could be GOP House flips this fall when the election happens, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that wave is sustained by highlighting some of the great incoming class that is potentially out there.
Well, that starts tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 a.m. in God's time zone, 3 a.m. on the left coast. And if you remember the Huniverse, HUGHNIVERSE.com, you can watch the Hugh Hewitt show, just like you could have watched it yesterday when I was guest hosting. By the way, I understand that Mike Gallagher kicked my ass on fundraising for food for the poor, but
Well, hey, look, if there's one thing that Mike
kicked
Gallagher is,
my ass.
if there's one thing that Mike Gallagher does better than almost anybody else on radio, is basically selling things. He's really good at that. That's
Mike's a great guy. I am glad. I'm happy for any success that comes Mike's way, because Mike is really just a
I know.
sweetheart of a guy.
He's a sweetheart of a guy,
Which is the reason why I don't mind. It's the reason why I don't mind admitting that he kicked my ass yesterday.
and he will sell snow to an Eskimo.
By the way, if you get a chance, go to HughHewitt.com, click on the Help Ukraine banner for food for the poor,
Yes,
because they are sending.
do that because Mike Gallagher doesn't need a bit of help at all.
No. Go to
He's
HughHewitt.com to do
fine.
it.
Yes, exactly.
Help me kick Mike Gallagher's ass the next time. That's what I say. How's that for a sales pitch? I don't think.
How's that for
work.
a sales pitch?
I don't think that's going to
yeah.
work, but All right. So do that instead of going to an AM radio dial and haranguing a station manager about putting Hugh on the air. You can do that too, but in this case, I think we're just going to tell you to go to HughHewitt.com, click on the Help Ukraine banner, and help some people out, some war refugees in Ukraine. They can really use the help. Dwayne, Generalissimo Patterson. By the way, you're going to be doing an after show tonight too. I should mention that.
I am going to be doing an after show tonight. Just basically me in the news. All the video clips that get developed today. Somebody's got to make sense of them, and that's what I do.
There you go. All right. Dwayne Generalissimo Patterson, thanks for being with us. We will talk to you again next week, sir.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, guys.
All right. Stay tuned for one final message from the Ed Morrissey Show about how you can support the show and how you can help me kick Mike Gallagher's ass. No, I'm just kidding. Just stay tuned for stay tuned for a short message. Thank you for watching and listening to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube to get alerted as soon as new episodes get published. You can support the Ed Morrissey Show and Hot Air's VIP reporting by becoming a VIP member, too. Visit hotairvip.com and use the promo code SAVEAMERICA, all one word, for 40% off your membership. Choose VIP Gold and gain membership to access to all of the Town Hall sites. Thanks again for watching and listening.